Bitcoin just had a massive weekly candle close. Why the chart is looking extremely bullish for Bitcoin. We're going to talk about that. Is 70K going to happen today, or at least by the end of the week? We're going to discuss that. We also have Matt Hougan, the CIO of Bitwise, joining us in about 30 minutes to discuss all things Bitcoin ETF, Bitwise. Michael Sonnenschein, the CEO of Grayscale, has stepped down. What does that mean? Also, the Ethereum ETF deadline is fast approaching in 3 days. What will the SEC do? There's a lot of chatter about how potentially we could still see an Ethereum ETF approval. We're going to get Matt's take on that as well. Also, big news from some altcoins. Solana continues to make new highs. Maybe not in price, but in some other areas and metrics as well. The crypto markets are hot. What are some sectors you should keep your eye on? Are meme coins still a play for this market? We have that and so much more to talk about on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy Big Rob back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto. If it's your first time checking us out, we're the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel. We take old, boring, and, well, stale information, repackage that thing up in a fun and sexy way. Bitcoin, over 68,000. Is 70,000 around the corner? I think so. We had a brief taste of 70,000 in the past, and I think we're about to get a full helping this week. And then also Solana and Phantom. Man, oh man, Phantom is up massively. It's a huge, absolutely huge. Yeah, so altcoins are moving, man. I'm feeling pretty confident.
I'm seeing a trend here, and it has nothing to do with the chart or anything. But, Friday, we both wore black shirts, and the markets rallied. Today, we're both wearing white shirts, and the markets are rallying.
Wow. Yes.
Just saying, man.
International money is flowing into Bitcoin. People are DCAing at a faster rate because we are matching. You are spot on that one, David.
Too bad we can't put it on a chart somewhere. Speaking of charts, Bitcoin just had a massive weekly close. But first, couple of patterns here that we've kind of kept our eye on. One is this massive cup and handle pattern that seems to potentially be breaking out. Second one was a bull flag, not only on the weekly, but on the daily as well. As you can see here, we have broken out. We didn't even get a chance to retest this trend line. We will do so in the future, potentially maybe on a wick. But this trend line test right here would be right around $61,500. If we go back to the weekly, okay, I want you to, there's a pattern in candlesticks called the engulfing candle, right? So what this signifies is, hey, the price action superseded or it engulfed the entirety of the last days or the previous week or the previous month's price action. And what Bitcoin did last week, the candle that just ended yesterday, not only did he engulf the previous week's candle, but two other ones as well. So we have the week of April 15th, that entire body got engulfed. We also had the following week, the week of the 22nd, that pattern or that candle was completely engulfed. And of course, last week's as well. This was a massive 8% weekly candle for BTC, getting as high as $67,481 on the wick. And of course, we are currently trading at $68,324. This is according to Binance. But it's not just Bitcoin that is hot. The markets are green across the board. We take a look here. Ethereum is at $3,142, up 2.2%. Solana, the big winner in the top 10, up 6.5%, crossing that $180 threshold.
But the thing to look at is Solana's up almost 25% on the week, man. It's really performing well right now.
Yeah, Solana keeps, you know what? I'll just show this here. So Solana surpasses all other chains combined, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, in weekly NFT blockchain user adoption. Their dominance is 55%. NFTs are obviously super hot back in 2021, leading into the bear market, and 98% of them have almost pretty much gone to zero. Will the market come back? And if it does, can you imagine everything that's happening on Solana now with the meme coins, with everything that we're seeing now? And if you throw NFTs in the mix, I mean, that's kind of what catapulted Ethereum, right? It was DeFi and it was NFTs, right? Because I think the dominance for ETH was around 80% on NFTs in the last market cycle.
Also, don't forget about all of the ERC20 tokens. And so there was a lack of layer one smart contracts that were functional in the early stages of the last bull market. And so if you were starting a new project or perhaps a meme coin or whatever token you want to use, if you weren't building your own layer one, you were probably launching it on Ethereum. And just to double down on your point or narrative here is that, hey, where are all these new tokens coming out at? Where are new meme coins coming out on? Now, we haven't seen the dApps as far as DeFi exploding in the same way that we saw Ethereum last bull market, but you can make a case that meme coins, at least, which are an indicator of retail and where people would like to build at, because those are the.
Can't you argue meme coins are part of DeFi? Decentralized finance?
I think they can be, but they're not. Right. I think that you do get some outliers. Shiba Inu did expand utility to offer some DeFi services, but more or less, it's just a community token where people are just getting in, hoping to see the price rally and try to get some exit liquidity. Now, doesn't mean all of them do that, but I would say majority of them are. But I think that because meme coins are built so quickly and they don't really require a lot of coding, right? Is that they're almost like a precursor, and I think they're going to be a precursor, right? Because the time it takes to build a dApp that has multi-layer or multifaceted functionality, those are going to be they're going to take a lot longer to build, but I think that they are building them. I think that people are exploring their options when they're saying, hey, like, what ecosystem do I want to develop on? We have Ethereum or we have Solana. And I think that the rise in the meme coins on Solana is an indicator that probably the developers are building, just haven't quite launched or caught adoption yet. So pretty bullish on Solana this bull market.
Yeah, very bullish on Solana. Also very bullish on Brokyoshi. He was our very first whale member. You remember that? 2 years later, it's his anniversary. So Brokyoshi, big shout out to you, my friend. Such an amazing guy. We met him down in Atlanta. And so he's been supporting us for quite a while. And so Brokyoshi, we love you. We appreciate you, my friend. Take a look at the rest of the markets. As far as the biggest gainers, Pith Network is up 20% over the last 24 hours. Pendle, Beam, Injective, Sui is up 10.4%. Theta Network is up. Dog with Fat kind of had a pretty big spill off. It was down over 30% over the last 7 days, and it has kind of flipped, although it is still red on the 7 day. It is up 9% on the 24 hours. BitTensor, and as Robin mentioned, Phantom, 93.15 cents, up 8.5% over the last 24 hours.
Look at that weekly on that.
Yeah, 37%.
Yeah.
So if we go weekly, Phantom is number 2 on the weekly gainers. In the top 100, Ondo Finance is up 24%. I put out a tweet over the weekend, or it was over the weekend, or it was Friday or Thursday, that the RWAs are getting ready to just absolutely explode. I mean, that massive news from Chainlink and the pilot program at those banks and with the DTCC, I think we're going to start seeing these RWA coins, these RWA chains start to rally. That includes Ethereum, that includes Ondo, that includes Chainlink, that includes projects like Avalanche, which, funny enough, they got this going on. So this is happening on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing the $1 trillion reinsurance market on chain, talking about tokenization on Avalanche. Avalanche is one not a lot of people are talking about when they bring up RWAs, right? It's mostly Ondo, Ethereum. Now people are finally starting to throw Chainlink in there. But Avalanche is one where if you take a look at where Avalanche is currently right now, it is currently ranked number 12 with a market cap of $14 billion. If it does start to take a decent piece of that RWA pie, if the gaming one is a big one, a lot of big games coming out, right? You have Off the Grid that is going to be launched as an Avalanche subnet. You have Beam, which is an Avalanche subnet. And there's another big game on Shrapnel that is on Avalanche. And so Avalanche Gaming RWAs plus what it does, Avalanche at 37 bucks had an all-time high of, we take a look at Avalanche's all-time high. It did get all the way up to, no, let's go to the AVAX chart here there we go. Let's go Binance, bam. So Avalanche, Avalanche's all-time high in the last market cycle, it did get a wick up to $147 and it's currently sitting at 37 bucks. What's your outlook on Avalanche, Robin? If RWA narrative, you know, they kind of capture some of that, right? The gaming narrative, and just, hey, they're a pretty dope layer one, great team behind it. What are your thoughts on Avalanche's potential for this bull market?
You know, Avalanche, I feel like they almost snuck into the top 20 or right outside the top 10. And I know they've been there, and I'm not saying that they just all of a sudden got there like today, but I feel like they've been flying under the radar, right? Most of the narratives that you hear about layer ones, or most of the conversations out here on YouTube and the broader internet, a lot of times exclude Avalanche as one of the primary layer ones that people are building on. It. Perhaps it's because, you know, gaming doesn't quite take the headlines that DeFi does and meme coins do. That said, the price of Avalanche now compared to its previous all-time highs, it's pretty far gap, right? We're at $36. Previous all-time high was around 140.
They're on a 5x.
Yeah, so you're almost at a 5x. We're looking at Solana right now about to cross its former all-time high, right? And you have Ethereum about $1,500 short of its previous all-time high. And, you know, the list goes on and on. You know, I think that there's a lot of value there. I think that the ecosystem is going to grow. I mean, XRP, you look at its previous, you know, where it was last bull market, it was $1.80. It's just roughly a 3x away. You take a look at, you know, Ethereum.
Look at BNB.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, BNB is just, this thing didn't.
It made its all-time high in the bear market. The first coin ever.
It didn't even. Yeah, look at this, man. This thing didn't even have a bear market. It's quite comical, but that's for another conversation.
You know what's funny, Robin? When I did my layer one ranking video, one of my thesis for you know, it wasn't in the it was the bottom barrel, but one of the outlooks says, hey, it's gonna sound funny, but if you kind of don't want that 90% drawdown, Avalanche saw like a 95% drawdown. BNB only saw like a 65% drawdown, which was the best in the market. And so, hey, is it a good way to protect yourself in the bear market is to just put it all into BNB? Maybe it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential for upside.
For BNB?
For Avalanche.
Oh, okay.
For Avalanche. I mean, even if you take a look at Chainlink, I mean, its previous all-time high was $40. It's sitting at 16. So I don't know. I just look at from where it moved at, or where the price ended up last bull market to where it is now. Just off of price alone, a lot of upside potential from where it's at now. But then also, as you mentioned, you know, there's just a lot of development going on in there. The subnets are really popular right now, and you know, if they expand outside of gaming, I think that you're gonna have an explosion.
Speaking of explosion, that was going to be such a bad segue. I want to give a thank you to our channel sponsor, Cam's Blue Wire Technology. Today's crystal clear 4K stream is brought to you by Cam's. They've been a sponsor for a very long time here at Sin City Crypto, and they're our go-to company when we need help with our networking, IT, and cybersecurity. If you run a business and you want the same level of help and service that we get here at Sin City Crypto, visit bluewiretech.com or click the link in the description of this video. You know, the one key thing to remember too is when you look at, hey, if I hold this token, am I going to make money, right? Obviously, price needs to go up. What is going to cause the price to go up? Is it just speculation? Is it like an actual utility? When you look at Avalanche, anytime someone wants to launch a subnet, there is a minimum of 5 validators you have to get. And each validator needs 2,000 AVAX tokens. So for every subnet that is launched, you need a minimum of 10,000 AVAX tokens, and those need to be locked. And so when you think about it, Avalanche going up, if the network is growing, if they have RWAs, if they have gaming and everything else that they're doing on Avalanche, and the ability to launch your own subnet, and when you do, you have to go out and buy 10,000 AVAX tokens, and those aren't going to be sold. You're essentially moving supply from the order books, and then you start getting everything else piling in. That's when you really start seeing like rapid price appreciation. And so Avalanche is something that I've DCA'd into when it was around $6-7. I bought some more around that $18 to $20 level. I know a lot of people said, "Hey, should have waited for the drawdown." But when you think Avalanche get to $300, $400, $500, $15 or $20, the chance of missing out on a massive rally, you got to kind of weigh those risks versus reward. I do want to go over the ETF flows here from last Friday. Pretty big day, 221 million in positive flows. We even had Grayscale bringing in 31.6 million. We have some news of Grayscale CEO stepping down. We're going to go over that here in a second. But BlackRock, 38.1 million. They were not the leader though. It was Fidelity that led the way with almost $100 million of inflows. Bitwise came in at number 3 with 20.8 million. And then you had like 10 million, 5.7, 6, 10, 31 million from
trend reversal. And I think that maybe I haven't had enough credit on that, but it's been over a month since we've seen the inflows this high for the week. And so last week was an absolute victory when it comes to accumulation and inflows on the Bitcoin ETFs. So
yeah,
hopefully that trend continues this week. You think it will?
Probably, yeah. Hunter Horsley, the CEO of Bitwise, said this should be an interesting week. He just tweeted that this morning. Curious what he means. Obviously, we know the Ethereum ETF application. We know Bitwise is one of the companies that applied for one. So we're going to get Matt's take on what he thinks is going to happen and what their recourse would be potentially if it does get denied. But that could potentially be it. You also have the FOMC minutes coming out this week as well. And I believe Jerome Powell will be speaking at an event somewhere. So, a lot of people nowadays are just looking for any little inkling in what Jerome Powell and the Fed chair or the Fed commissioners say, the Fed presidents. Are we going to get a rate cut? Are we not going to get a rate cut? Are we going to see quantitative easing? Are we not going to see quantitative easing? So these are all things that the markets try to front run and speculate on. But as Rob mentioned, weekly flows, $932 million. This is from CoinShares. You can see here, we did see massive inflows. This was when the ETF first got launched. We saw 2 consecutive weeks of over $3 billion of inflows. Now, 2 consecutive weeks of positive flows, which is good because we had about a month of negative flows, which saw the price, surprisingly, the price of Bitcoin didn't dip as much as you saw the outflows, not only the ETFs, but across institutions across the board. We take a look here at, ranked flows, what had the most, what had the least. Bitcoin, of course, takes the cake at $942 million. Second was Solana with almost $5 million. And then Chainlink, $3.68 million. A lot of hype around Chainlink, as mentioned. Their pilot program with DTCC and leading banks like US Bank and JP Morgan Chase. That was a success. We saw the Chainlink token rally. So pretty interesting to see these flows. Any thoughts on this here? Anything you're kind of surprised? We see Ethereum's had the most outflows, 23.3 million of outflows. Could that change if the Ethereum spot ETF gets approved? And let me tell you something. If that ETF gets denied and Ethereum's price starts to decline, if it gets under $2,600, $2,500, I'm a buyer.
You think it would drop that hard? I don't think so. I think that if the application got denied today, I believe that just take a peek at the price. So 31.50. If it got denied today, I would say 2,800 would probably. I know that's historically been a support zone. 2,800. So I don't know. I think that's that.
Ask yourself,
I don't think it'll go
but
further.
ask
lower.
yourself this question, right? We saw leading up to the Bitcoin ETF approval, we saw speculators and that start to be priced in, right? How much of this 3,100 do you think is investors pricing in have been pricing in the potential of an ETF approval?
I don't think it's more than a
20%?
drawdown percent of past 2,800. I really don't. I mean, okay, here's an example. What time after time we had denials of the Bitcoin ETF for years. And maybe it was people got used to it, but we didn't see dramatic sell-offs of Bitcoin every time there was a denial. And so I think that same could be said here for the Ethereum ETF. I think that a lot of people are expecting it to get denied. I think that the priced in narrative of it to pass, I don't even think is there. I think that if the ETF got passed, the price would shoot up. But I think that the fact is that there's a general consensus right now that the ETF is going to get denied. And because of that, I think that that's the priced in narrative. I think that people are expecting it to get denied. So when it does, sure, it'll sell off a little bit. I agree. Will it get as far as $2,500? I don't see it happening. I'm sorry. Unless the market is already moving in that direction. I mean, if Bitcoin's if Bitcoin's draws down to say 63,000, Ethereum's down to 2,800, then sure, 2,900, sure, I could see that. But right now, at the price of we're at 30, damn near $3,200, I don't see it drawing down that much. I do want to say, man, Bitcoin had such a big move this morning, just in the last 3 hours, from 66 up above 68, testing or getting closer to that 69K mark. So if you look at the weekly candle, if you look at the weekly movements here, so this is on the 24-hour here. You can see just from 60, we did touch 65,000 briefly, but basically from 66 to 68.5 is where we've been at. Pretty significant move. Also, you take a look at the 1 week, and this is pretty encouraging. So a week ago, we were testing the 60K mark, right? And so from 60,000 up to 68 in the span of 6 days is I think it speaks pretty loud. And, the fact that we consolidated above 65 for 4 or 5 days, I think is pretty strong evidence that we've came up, tested 65 or blew past it, kept it as support, and now we're off to the races. I think that 70K is around the corner for the end of the week. Do you think we cross 70K this week?
I think so. The only thing I'll say is, you have that incident that happened in Iran with the president, the helicopter crash. And why do I mention it? The whole thing that happened overseas when you have conflicts like that, and they come out and say, "Oh, we're gonna do something that's never," like the markets react, right? The markets try to front run. Hey, is something bad gonna happen? Let me go risk off a little bit. That is the only thing that I can point to and say that could potentially, spook the markets and drive the price down. If you have, they investigate, something comes out and it was this person, the fingers start pointing, and then people are like, oh my God, what are they going to do? That's the only thing, because when you look at everything else, when you look at the supply, how much Bitcoin is being mined, I think the exchange balance of Bitcoin is at almost all-time lows. You have the 1 year plus holders haven't sold, and you have now you have positive inflows from even Grayscale. How much of that is going to continue? Who knows? We have a big shakeup at Grayscale with their CEO, Michael Sonnenschein, leaving. You know what? Let's just cover that right now since I kind of brought it up. So this was Michael Sonnenschein, has been with Grayscale for quite a while. I leave Grayscale with deep gratitude for everyone who has been on this incredible rocket ship journey. Barry Silber, thank you for taking a bet on me and for your partnership these last 10 years. To the Grayscale leadership team, thank you. Finally, and most importantly, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to each and every member of the Grayscale team. I'm excited for what is next. In the meantime, keep building. And so, of course, this is a gentleman who oversaw the victory against the SEC in court to get their Bitcoin ETF trust converted to a spot ETF. And so, Michael was a key person at Grayscale. And who do they replace him with? They replaced him with a former Goldman Sachs executive. Is that a positive? Is that a negative? I don't know. But what are your thoughts on this, Robin? It was kind of out of the blue. And my thing with out of the blue resignations, I know you don't put as much weight on it, but just like, what's going on here? Just like Vanguard, CEO, 47-year-old, successful, second largest asset manager, decides to step down, and then they bring in a Bitcoin guy. I don't know. So
I think large companies, board members, they shuffle around quite often. CEOs maybe not quite at the rate that board members do, but I don't know. I don't speculate. I just assume from headlines, especially if you got publicly traded companies, they have to be transparent, and they have to announce to the public anything that's, inner workings that are changing, deals are falling through, theft, things of that nature needs to be disclosed. So on one side, if you're a publicly traded company, your CEO steps down. I just don't see a scenario where they're trying to cover up something internally for a publicly traded company. You can get in a lot of trouble with the SEC. So I don't know. I kind of lay that to bed. Now, what does that mean for Grayscale? I don't know. I mean, potentially just mixing it up a little bit. I know that the ETF for Grayscale seen a lot of outflows, and has a lot to do with the fees that the ETF has in comparison to its competitors. And so outflows have been there. So maybe they're looking to change it up. I'm not too sure. So I don't know. I think when your company's not performing as well as the competitors, sometimes a change is needed. Kind of like the same thing, when you have a sports team and maybe you miss the playoffs, or your team's record is not doing as well as it was historically. Usually you change the head coach. Doesn't mean that the head coach was a bad fit. We've seen that one coach will leave a team, go somewhere else, and be successful. But sometimes just a fresh change or fresh face is what's needed, right?
a lot of people, of course, there's speculation, right? Well, is it because a lot of money flowed out, right? I don't know. I'm not here to speculate on that, but I do know that, hey, this is a shakeup. What will the new guy do? Goldman Sachs? Who knows? That remains to be seen. I want to share a video. So do you see what they're doing in Venezuela, Robin?
Are they throwing money in the dumpster?
Kind of indirectly, yeah. They're on a mission to shut down all the Bitcoin miners.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is a video of them promoting what they're doing.
Bueno, hola a todos. Aquí estamos en la zona industrial de Valencia, en una de las tantas granjas de minería que hemos bloqueado y hemos desconectado por, la necesidad que tenemos de que esos megavatios que se están prácticamente robando del sistema interconectado nacional para la producción de criptomonedas en detrimento del pueblo de Carabobo, no se puedan seguir absorbiendo y de esa manera disminuir el consumo, al igual que, que todas las políticas que vendrán a partir de ahora sobre los grandes consumidores en el Estado mientras esto se normaliza. Nosotros tenemos en este...
Why not just turn off the internet? I'm sure it's taking a lot of power as well.
Yeah.
Could be better used to power homes and air conditioners and also your luxury items. God forbid it's just funny how companies and people that want to prioritize finance, and they say, hey, the system that we have here is broken. Let me prioritize a digital currency over the national currency, how they're penalized or frowned upon for doing so. And yet you have, no surprise, political leaders. Is this who is it? Is this a political leader?
God, good question.
Well, more than likely political leaders, and if this gentleman isn't himself a political leader, there are political leaders that have taken this approach saying, hey, Bitcoin mining is bad, it's bad for the environment, but you know what, there's a cost of compute, there's a price for operating a global financial system, and the intermediaries are removed, and well, we're using computing power to do so, right? And so I don't know, man. I don't feel like this is going away anytime soon, and I think it'll accelerate. And I think that what we'll see is more countries, as inflation grows rampant, as people decide to adopt Bitcoin or to mine Bitcoin. I think that the governments are going to panic, and they're going to try to shut down, prohibit, or influence the population to use their own national currency. And it's no surprise that a country like Venezuela, that is at the top of inflation numbers, or at least
literally toilet paper is worth more than their currency. And I'm not even trying to be funny because of the utility. Man, a lot. Does this worry you, right? Like if a government or governments decide to attack the Bitcoin network and say, hey, miners, you got to leave. Like maybe someone who doesn't understand, Robin, maybe just real quick, is this something that worries you, or what are your thoughts? Is this something that people should worry
about? For the Bitcoin network, no, that's fine. I mean, we've seen other countries ban or kick out miners. We saw China do it last bull market. People are just going to take their ASICs or their compute power, and they're just going to plug them in somewhere else. Or we've seen also in China where people are still like mining, but just kind of doing it in the hush hush kind of way. For the network, for the security, not an issue. But for people that live in Venezuela or countries that are prohibiting mining, it kind of sucks. It's a concern. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
What you guys gotta understand is,
I will say this though. I will say this. Maybe there's some kind of truth to what we're seeing there with that video, right? And so, if the grid there is strained and there's a lot of Bitcoin mining and the miners are setting up and it's really not green energy, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's a better area, or perhaps they have like hydroelectric dams are pretty good spots to set up miners because of the surplus of energy, and the cost is a lot lower. And so maybe if there's a strain on the grid,
what we know is, it's as easy as unplug, find somewhere else, plug back in as the difficulty adjusts.
Well, we also seen in Texas, I'll just say that, a lot of times with the energy demands in the middle of the summer, the miners have voluntarily shut down their units just to alleviate.
What other business can do that?
Yeah. And to alleviate the network. And then, hey, when the demand for energy drops back down, they turn back on. And so
I just want to add
and I'll leave it at
Dave,
this,
if
right?
I may.
To those of you that have a solar panel, think about this, right? When they give you a quote, they always quote you more electricity generated than what you really need. And so same thing with these, take the ERCOT, for example, in Texas. There's plenty of days, I would say probably more than half, where there's more energy being created than is being used. So you have a surplus, and the miners come in and they eat up that surplus. And so it's a win-win. And as Rob mentioned, being able to unplug is a win-win.
Very quick, Dave. I want to add, having family in Venezuela, the grid has been used for the past 20 years. There is lack of electricity. People run with 3 hours a day electricity and no water. Reason being because they use the electricity, because the government is kind of corrupt, to sell and send the electricity to other country next by for, private interests. So I think the excuse of the miners is really an excuse. The grid has been, unfortunately, erosion and fell down, and there is more corruption. Now, there was an alternative for people to use Bitcoin as an alternative currency because, the Bolivar is worthless. You saw those videos where they throw the money on the street. So it was just a method for people to have an alternative, and they shut it down using the excuse of the power grid. No.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify that because I had some insight.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I'm sure if we took a camera and went to Venezuela, they'd probably say the same thing. We're excited to have our next guest join the show. First time on the show, Rob met this gentleman in New York at an event for Bitcoin ETFs. I wasn't able to be there, but Bitwise has been leading the ETF here. They're I believe they're the only ones that give anything back to the Bitcoin developers. Around 10%, I believe, of their revenue they donate to the Bitcoin developers. So big shout out to Bitwise. And we have Matt Hougan, the CIO of Bitwise, joining us today. Matt, how are you doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. We're super excited. I think you met Robin. I'm David. Again, we're excited to have you. Matt, I want to ask you, I saw a tweet. You're going to be at a conference in October, I believe in Salt Lake City, permissionless, to which they referred to you as Mr. Inflow. Is there a story behind that?
That was the first time. There's a first time for everything. I mean, the reality is that I come from an ETF background. So before I joined Bitwise 7 years ago to focus exclusively on crypto, I spent 15 years in the ETF industry, including as CEO of ETF.com. So I've tracked and followed ETF flows for a long time. Now I have my own ETF with BITB, the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF, and I've been following those flows very closely. So I'm excited to show up at that conference and talk about who's buying these Bitcoin ETFs and what it means for Bitcoin long-term, because I think there's a really positive story to tell there.
Amen to that. I will be at that conference in Salt Lake City, so I'm excited to meet you. I'm taking a look here at the Bitcoin flows, Matt, and looks like Bitwise, 1.9 billion in total inflows, ranking number 4. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter, and earlier it was, hey, the ETF was not successful because, hey, well, the people that care only about number go up. The number wasn't going up.
For what, a week?
For what, a week, yeah. How would you summarize the success of the ETF as a whole and for Bitwise, your company?
Yeah, absolutely off the charts is the only way to summarize it. As mentioned, spent 15 years in the ETF industry, the fastest growing ETF of all time. And there have been 5,500 ETFs launched by the largest firms in the world. The fastest growing ETF of all time got to $5.3 billion in its first year. These Bitcoin ETFs pulled in $12 billion in their first 3 months. So more than 2.5x or roughly 2.5x the most successful ETF of all time. Bitwise, which is a small, crypto specialist asset manager, our ETF is growing faster than the gold ETF, which is widely considered one of the most successful ETF launches of all time. And we're competing against BlackRock and Fidelity. So, look, it maybe is no surprise to us on this call, but there are a lot of people out there that want to invest in Bitcoin. Some people want to do it directly and custody it themselves. Some people want to do it on centralized exchanges. ETF is just another way to do it. And sure enough, there are a lot of people, a lot of professional investors, some pensions, some corporations, some financial advisors, some hedge funds, some family offices who wanted a way to do it too. And they're doing it at absolute record levels.
Matt, I follow you on X. I also follow your CEO, Hunter Horsley, on X. And he tweeted this morning, about an hour and 50 minutes ago, should be an interesting week. Now, I know this is not your tweet, but I'm assuming maybe you've had some communications. I'm wondering, does it have anything to do with Michael Sonnenschein stepping down? Does it have anything to do with, the spot ETF? Potential, May 23rd is the deadline for, hey, final approval or denial. No more kicking the can down the road. What are you expecting this week with the Ethereum ETF? We know Bitwise does have an application in there now. What's your outlook? And do you, what's your do you have a probability in your head of, hey, is it going to get approved? Is it going to get denied?
Yeah, the way this works is there's a compliance genie that sits on my shoulder and says, I can't speak specifically about our ETF application or anyone's ETF application. What I can say is that, Bloomberg, who have really been real experts at this, Eric Balchunas and James Seifert, put the odds at 25%. Important to note that 25 is not zero, right? 25 is not zero. It's not more than 50. But I do think it's going to be an interesting week, regardless of what we hear. If we hear approval, obviously that's a shock to the market and will be a massive, catalyst, I think, for this space over the next 9 months. If we hear disapproval, then at least we'll learn what the SEC is thinking. But, if you step back, there's actually another reason Hunter mentioned it's an interesting week, which is there's really this sea change going on in Washington. Maybe we're all focused on the spot Bitcoin ETF, but we had both houses of Congress pass the first pro-crypto piece of legislation in U.S. history last week when they voted to overturn SAB 121. At the same time, we have stablecoin bills that are making their way through Congress. I think you're seeing Washington and Wall Street come around on crypto and start to be pro-crypto, at least certain parts of it. And I think that's a sea change. Whether that spells into a ETH ETF approval now or in the future, I don't know. But I do think there's a real sea change going on in Washington around this industry that's going to be part of what propels us to what I think will be new all-time highs by the end of this year.
Amazing. I do want to go back to the SAB 121, but I want to stay on the Ethereum ETF really quick. There's a lot of speculation that, hey, the Bitcoin ETF was extremely successful. There's some analysts that are saying the Ethereum ETF could bring even more money for the simple fact of, hey, staking, right? Able to take that Ethereum that you buy on behalf of your clients, stake it, earn a yield on that end. And what can you do on the back end? Well, you can have even lower fees than what you have on the Bitcoin ETF, or you could potentially have no fees. How does Bitwise, how are you guys looking to separate yourself from the rest of the competition once the Ethereum ETF does get approval? Is there a game plan you could maybe share with us?
Yeah, I mean, what Bitwise really specializes in, the reason we've been able to succeed with the Bitcoin ETF is a combination of low costs and high service. So low cost is obvious. On the spot Bitcoin ETF, we priced at 0.20% or 20 basis points. It was the lowest cost ETF out of the gate. Obviously, costs matter when you invest. The less you spend, the more you keep. And so that was one competitive advantage. But the other advantage is we're crypto specialists. This is all we do. We have a team in the field in every region of the country that exists to have meetings with financial advisors and family offices to answer their questions about crypto. They do it whether the market is up, down, or sideways. We did 20,000 of those meetings last year. And there's certainly people out there who just want to reach for something familiar like BlackRock. But then there are also people who want to reach for a specialist, which is what Bitwise is. So you can expect in the Ethereum space, when and if we get an Ethereum ETF, you'll see a similar combination, being very competitive on fees and then being, the absolute crypto specialist, the only firm that donates back to the ecosystem, the only firm that publishes its Bitcoin address. We aim to differentiate there. I think the question on staking is a interesting one. We'll have to see what the SEC says. Staking is an added complication. Many of the issuers that I saw removed staking from their application. So I think it's too early to speculate on, even if we do see approval now or in the future, whether those initial ETFs will have staking or not. It could be a sort of rollout over time. In the interim, Bitwise would focus on competitive fees and superior service and being the most crypto native of the issuers in this space.
Then I was just curious, and I don't know if there's more to unpack there, but when it comes to these large banks, we had a lot of headline articles come out where, you had JP Morgan Chase, UBS, Wells Fargo. And it seemed like week after week with these quarterly earning reports coming out that there were more and more large banks or the big chain banks that, the regular folks like me and you we're accustomed to using. We're seeing these banks that have flipped their stance on Bitcoin. They've always kind of shunned the whole Bitcoin thesis. And they said, hey, now, they're out here buying Bitcoin. Is there more to this? Because I know we have the SAB 121 where you have potentially the stablecoins being issued by banks. I guess that would be further down the road, but it kind of opens up that lane. And now you also got Bitcoin on the balance sheets or custodied or exposure in some way or shape or form through these banks. Is there something more to unpack here? Do you think they're going to get some kind of crypto services from the banks? What's your big takeaway with these big names having Bitcoin?
Yeah, 100%. There's a huge thing to unpack here. I love the question. Look, Tether makes more money than Goldman Sachs. Wall Street is not going to let that stand, right? They're not cool with that. You can't have 100 people in Monaco printing more money than 43,000 Goldman Sachs employees who are working 80-hour weeks. Like, that's just not how this world works. And I think once Wall Street woke up to the money that is to be made in the crypto industry, they wanted in. Many people didn't notice, but shortly after the Bitcoin ETFs launched in February, the American Bankers Association and a couple other traditional Wall Street lobbying firms wrote a public letter saying, let us participate in the custody space. So I think there has really been a sea change. Now, it doesn't mean all of crypto is now something that Wall Street is aligning behind, but I think they're aligning behind Bitcoin. I think they're aligning behind custody. I think they're aligning behind trading. I think they're aligning behind stable coins. I think all of that is going to move into the accepted, regulated realm. And that's going to be a real positive tailwind for the space. But yeah, there's a bigger story. It's follow the money. That's always the story.
Yeah, I just always kind of think, I'm like, man, the banking services, for all the major banks, they always include portfolio management, and they have credit services and small business services. And so I feel like if you're outside of crypto here, maybe five years from now, I think you're going to be at a disadvantage because I think the major banks are going to get exposure to that. And I'm glad you mentioned the stable coins and how much money Tether is making. It's such a large amount of U.S. treasuries are being held by stable coins. And so I feel like the United States government is doing a disservice by not offering a clear path for stable coin regulation just off of the sheer liquidity that they would bring in off of on the treasury side. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer if you're just trying to raise some capital here for the budget for the U.S. But I don't know.
Couldn't agree more. It's crypto bailing out the U.S. government, right? There's some beautiful irony in that moment. But you're starting to see this. You saw Paul Ryan, who was, used to be a leader in Washington, still very respected. He was asked, what can Congress do about the deficit problem? And his first answer was pass stablecoin legislation. You've seen Fed Governor Waller talk about how the passage of stablecoin legislation would help cement the dollar's place as the world's reserve currency. So I think all of the forces in Washington are slowly turning the ships behind stablecoins, Bitcoin, custody trading, and parts of crypto. And I think that will extend over time. I think you're absolutely right. Firms that aren't getting on this bandwagon will be left behind in the future. But I think you're going to see, over the next 12 months, just a complete sea change from where Washington was a major headwind to crypto to Washington being a significant tailwind to crypto, sort of crypto unleashed in a more accepted world. It's not going to be perfect. We're all going to complain about the various pieces of legislation. We have to be very vigilant that it doesn't, deny certain things that are fundamental to what crypto is about. But I think this is a real change in the market, and it's going to be very meaningful.
What a statement. Crypto is going to bail out the U.S. government. Oh, man. I love that. Matt, I want to, I have this tweet pulled up here. So an excerpt from your memo, from a weekly memo, and you had 5 predictions in here, and I kind of want to touch on some of these. The first one was Bitcoin's volatility will decline by 50%. And you said there's many reasons, but the big one is ETFs. Let me play devil's advocate here, Matt. If you have, typically Wall Street investors, right? Stock traders, speculators, they're very fickle to news. And, when they go risk off, they really go risk off. And so my thing is, hey, you have this new product. They already think, a majority of them probably think, hey, this is a volatile asset. If the macro headwinds start to change or things are looking bleak, my thing is, could Bitcoin be one of the first things they sell? So could that not drive volatility higher? And what's the thesis behind, the volatility decreasing with the ETFs?
Yeah, I think that's smart, and it's good to consider that possibility. So I don't think you're wrong to think about that. But there is a difference the way financial advisors and family offices and institutions manage their portfolios and the way retail investors manage their portfolios, which is financial advisors and family offices. They buy on a regular basis, like a monthly drip. Retail investors do that too, but they rebalance. In other words, they'll have a target of 2% Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin goes up and it becomes 3% of their portfolio, they'll sell. And if Bitcoin goes down and becomes 1% of their portfolio, they'll buy. This is how they manage their stocks and bonds. They have target allocations, and they sell when the price goes up and buy when the price goes down. That's just not a characteristic that we have in the Bitcoin market. For better or worse, people seem to like to buy Bitcoin when the price is up and seem to panic and sell as the price goes down. And I think this rebalancing frequency will help compress volatility, because you'll have people that will sell when the price is up and buy when the price is down, because it's just part of their portfolio mix. So, look, Bitcoin's volatility has been declining over years slowly. I think the entry of professional investors into the space and the entry of rebalancing will bring it down more. But you're right that there is also some hot money in the ETFs, so that's something to keep an eye on.
That's some great insight, Matt. Do you think the whole Bitcoin is a store of value narrative, is digital gold narrative? Do you kind of, like, from an anecdotal standpoint, or from the people in your circles and the people you speak to, is that something that is maybe gaining some traction, or are people still like, hey, this is just another risk on asset?
No, it's definitely gaining traction. It's gaining traction for two reasons. For one, it's just true, right? If you look since the start of COVID, the dollar's lost 25% of its value. Bitcoin is up like 800%. So if you were looking to hedge yourself of the COVID-induced inflation, there was no better asset than Bitcoin. And I think people recognize that. But I also think people are increasingly worried about the US deficit and how sustainable that will be, and what that means for the future value of the dollar. That wasn't really a concern 5 years ago. So people are searching out alternatives. So I absolutely hear from professional investors that they're adding a little bit of Bitcoin to hedge themselves against that risk of surprise debasement of the US dollar or continued deficits, meaning higher inflation. I think it's absolutely true.
Yeah, the currency, it's it's really taken some punches lately. I mean, even in the short term, in the last 4 years, I have a interesting some interesting numbers here. And if you want to pull it up, Rocco, I got prices of McDonald's go-to items here. So you have the cheeseburger in 2019 was $1, and now currently at $3.15, a little over 4 years ago, up over 215%. Same thing with the McChicken. Fries are up 134%. Not just there as well. You can see that prices of Taco Bell. And I kind of, we kind of laugh at, hey, this is the prices of fast food, but this is, one of the, this is how a lot of everyday individuals, feed themselves. And this is one of the biggest costs for people outside of, food is one of the biggest costs outside of shelter and transportation. And, what do you think about the cheeseburger price tripling here in the last 5 years? I think
it's totally wild to see these. I remember as a kid going to old timey restaurants, and they'd have like the menus from the 40s and 50s, and things would be like a quarter and a nickel. And you'd think, wow, imagine what life was like way back then. But at least it had been 50 years. Yeah. From $1 to $3.19 in 5 years. I feel that inflation when I go out shopping, or when I go, buy a coffee and it's $6. I feel that and experience that. And I do think it's a real hardship for a lot of people in the US. It's just true that the dollar is not worth what it used to be. And so people are looking for alternatives. And I I think it's playing right into the narrative of Bitcoin.
Yeah, that CPI reading, I think sometimes is misleading, also manipulated. We know that they shuffle they shuffle different things in and out of that basket of goods. So sometimes, you just got to zoom out and look at hey, what is something that everybody's bought for the last, 60, 80 years. McDonald's is a good measure of what everyday prices are, that price of gas and, the home prices, I think is speak very loud to what we've seen in the last 5 years. And then also you can just look straight at, the Fed now, the St. Louis Fed has tons of analytical data that says, hey, look, the M2 money supply, is more than doubled in a short period of time. So, I mean, it doesn't take a financial wizard here to identify, hey, double the money in circulation and what will happen to the price. And so,
don't worry, Tether's going to
It takes financial wizards to make the CPI look so low, given what we're all experiencing at the stores.
That's a great point.
That's more to the point,
Matt. That's a great point, Matt. I wanna end it here. So I want to go back to your 5 predictions, and the last one here, Matt. And I want to note that this is for the 2028 halving. You said Bitcoin's price will trade above 250K. What do you think? Do you have a price prediction for the 2024 halving at where Bitcoin should be trading, or do you think it will be trading for this cycle?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think of it is Bitcoin's driven by supply and demand. There's more demand than there is new supply. We're buying up, just the ETFs alone are buying up 2x the amount of Bitcoin mined, which means that all of that new demand has to buy it from people who already hold Bitcoin. The reason I raise that point is I think when you think about price, you have to think about the sort of behavioral actions of the people who already own Bitcoin. And what I see in the market is that there's a sliver of those people who want to sell at the all-time highs. That's why we've hit up against $70,000 a few times. It's hard to get past that behavioral sell line. I suspect there's another behavioral sell line at 100K. There are people who've owned Bitcoin for a long time who have said to themselves, I'll sell when we get to 100K. And so I suspect we'll hit our head at 100K, just like we hit our head at the all-time high around 70. What I don't know, and the reason I don't have an explicit price prediction, is what happens when we get above 100K. What is the catalyst that causes these people who already own Bitcoin to sell? Does it have to get to 200K, 250K? Does it get higher than that? I don't know. I just am long-term bullish because I think we've barely tapped into most of the demand for Bitcoin out there. Professional investors are just coming in. So, in the short term, Bitwise, we expect Bitcoin to trade to new all-time highs this year. I would be personally surprised if it didn't get above 100K. Where it goes from there, I think there's so many factors I'm not sure. But as a long-term investor, I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, we're excited as well. And, the whole I'm not sure, this is territory that I've never been in. That's pretty exciting, man. It's pretty exciting watching a product, something like Bitcoin, watching it from its infancy and how it's kind of garnered the attention of people, how it's looking to change people's lives in the world. It's exciting to be at the foundational level of it. And we're excited to have people like you in the space to kind of push that narrative forward.
You think they'll ask in this upcoming presidential debate, you think they'll ask a Bitcoin question or a crypto question?
Yeah, I think there'll be at least one in the presidential debate.
Ooh, that's so good, man.
Look, there are more people who own crypto than have accounts at Charles Schwab. I think it's a political issue. I also think it speaks to the core of what we do here in America from an innovation and disruption perspective. And so I'm excited to see it. Let's see if it happens.
Yeah, we're excited too. There's also more people that own crypto than own dogs as well. I forget who, someone tweeted that out. I think it might have been Brian Armstrong. I'm not sure. But Matt, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us. Are you going to be at the Consensus Convention in Austin?
I have a family conflict. So for the first time in 5 years, I'm going to miss it. But I will be at Permissionless later in the year, and I'll see you there.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much, Matt.
Right.
We'll see you in a few months. Take care.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
All right. I do want to, we were talking about the halving here a little bit. There is another halving no one's talking about, and I don't know why. It's the Ethereum Classic halving. Robin, 10 days, 11 hours, 44 minutes. What's the game plan here? Are we long on ETH Classic or? You were long on ETH Classic. Why are you laughing? Do you remember when you said, man, $12?
I was saying that ETH has more volatility, and it's a proxy to ETH with higher upside and also higher downside returns. The project is dead as far as developers and use case utility. Like, it's just a speculative vehicle right now, right? And it is something that is still being mined. It's not that there's absolutely nobody mining it, but as far as development and activity and use case, it's dead, man. It's dead, right? When's the last time you heard of something being built on ETH Classic?
Last time I heard about it was when you said buy it.
I was talking short term, bro.
Bitcoin has continued to move up. It was getting up to that $69,000 level. Just real quick, take a peek at the Bitcoin chart here on the daily. That's just a big candle here. And so, man, we are getting to a key, and I'm gonna I'll throw the volume on here, and let me get rid of this.
Yeah, I want to know, chat, do you guys think that Bitcoin will hit 70,000 by the end of the day? Do we touch the next level, 70,000? I want to know what you think. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that we're over $70,000 by the end of the night. Or do you think that we'll stay under 70,000? Put a 2 in the chat, just for today. And then I do think we'll cross there easily by the end of the week. I think that the volume, the flows that we had last week, I think will continue. But I'm just kind of curious where you guys land on today. Will we cross 70K today? 1 for yes, 2 for no.
Just taking a look at the Bitcoin chart on the daily here. And so we did cross a key level, which was right around this $66,700 level. And there's really no long-term resistance long-term resistance until we get around this order block here this is from Lux Algo. This is their price action concepts. There's really no key levels to look out for until we get to the bottom end of this discount or premium zone, which is right around $71,200. A lot of trading happened in this area, around 28% of all trading. We also saw Bitcoin pretty much had a triple top. This was back on 27th of March, again on the 31st of March, and we had that big spill off. And then the final one happened around the 8th of April. How would price react there? Expect a little bit of downward sell pressure from Bitcoin at these levels. Again, that's between 71,100 and pretty much all-time highs right around 72,700, 73,000. But again, with the exchange balances at all-time lows, with the demand continuing, with the inflows even from Grayscale continuing, I mean, it's pretty simple math, right? It's just supply and demand.
Yeah, and then a little bit more 2s than 1s in the chat. So
what was 1 and 2?
1 was gonna be over 70K by the end of the day. 2s were not quite there. So also, I did want to give a little love to the chat. For those of you that are new, we spotted out here. I had Uncle Ben G. God bless Crypto Otaku, Rob, Crypto Dino, Shady Bandito, and Rambo. To all of you, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Rambo. Ra. Anyways, want to give one more shout out to our channel sponsor, Cam's Blue Wire Technology. If you want to learn how Cam's can help your business scale and grow, visit bluewiretech.com, or there's a link in the description of this video. That'll do it for the show today. For all you ICP fans, we got Kyle Langham joining us again tomorrow. We're going to go a little more in depth about the ICP roadmap. We're going to talk about chain fusion, bringing Solana into the ICP ecosystem, what that could potentially mean for the internet computer. Also, we're going to talk about decentralized AI and why that's going to be such a disruptive sector, and what the internet computer in Definity is looking to do to be the clear-cut front runner in that sector. So super excited for that. With that being said, Rocco. Big thank you to our guest today, Matt Hougan, for joining the show today. We hope you guys got some value out of our guests and out of the content. Make sure to come back tomorrow, same place, same time. On behalf of all of us here, we love you guys. Till tomorrow. Peace.
Crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya, to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.